Hi, Merch Money. We are live with Jim DiGiovanni. I love your name. Do I say it right?
Yeah, DiGiovanni. Yeah.
DiGiovanni. I love it. Well, it's just been so fun to talk to Jim about all the different stuff he does. A real designer. I guess we're all real designers, but somebody with a little bit more experience than myself. So much to learn. So exciting. And again, our hearts go out to everyone. I know Jim was thinking about rescheduling this because it's just such a crazy time. I know all of you guys are going through so much with merch being down, and some of your other jobs maybe not going as well as you would like. So thank you guys all for continuing to still show up and still watch these videos. And thank you, Jim, for going ahead and keeping the show on today. Appreciate it.
Oh, sure. Thanks for asking me to be on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So Jim has been in our group for a while. He's been in Merch Money, an active member there. And then he also has been running a test group with some of the members in the Merch Money Mastermind, testing some Photoshop actions. So it kind of got me thinking about Photoshop actions and learning all about it. Because as you guys know, I don't use Photoshop or Illustrator, but just seeing everything that it does is really getting me motivated to possibly change that and start doing more with Photoshop and Illustrator. Oh, you guys are all so sweet. Everybody's saying happy birthday.
Oh, is it your birthday?
Today's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. That's fantastic.
Thank
I didn't know
you.
that.
BB Rose is my niece. She's saying happy birthday. Thank you, Brianna.
Oh, wow. That's nice. Happy birthday. Look at you working on your birthday.
Thank you. We've got all kinds. Jacob Topping, Scott. This show is perfect for these crazy times. Exactly. Sometimes you just need to learn something new, do something creative. Oh, you guys are so awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. And all the posts and all the all the comments. It's been so fun to talk to people this morning. I mean, it's only noon where I live, but already I've talked to so many friends and family, and so many people are going through so much. I have so many friends that have the coronavirus or have had it, and then so many people affected just, in general with their job or with things. So this will definitely be a birthday to remember. It's not quite as, usually it's lots of happy conversations, but today it's been a lot of like catching up with everybody, and it's like hard things that a lot of my friends and family are going through. So, but anyway, we will all get through this together. And thank you, Teresa. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jacob. He says he's posting in the group. Yeah, if anybody wants to share this, feel free to share. Jim is going to actually show his screen later on and show some of how he actually designs. So this will be very, very useful. If you know anyone that wants to learn how to design, this is the one to show. Oh, thank you, Angela. She's saying praying for me. Thank you. All right, so Jim, let's get into this. You are a true designer. Tell us about how you got started with designing in general. Like, how did you decide you wanted to do that?
Well, I mean, I've been a graphic designer for 20-something years, right? So, and I primarily work in advertising, entertainment marketing, and things like that. And the merch stuff is just honestly something I do sort of a little side hustle, just to kind of help pay for my son's college, basically.
Yeah,
so, that's kind of the idea behind it. And like, well, I need to make some extra money. So that's kind of how I do it. But I've been a designer working in both graphic design and motion graphics and editing and all kinds of things for a long time. So this is just like an additional sort of a thing that I started doing. And honestly, I started, I kind of fell into merch because I was originally doing Amazon FBA as a side thing, because I thought, well, that would be an interesting thing to kind of develop a product and design the packaging and do all that work. And I thought, well, that would be interesting to learn how to source stuff and that whole part of the business of actually finding a product and turning it into your own thing by creating packaging and marketing and all that. So that was an interesting challenge, and I did that, but I really didn't like doing the a lot of that is the especially for Amazon is the PPC, the pay-per-click marketing stuff. I just didn't really like it, and also the the inventory costs and stuff were it was really hard to kind of get ahead because you were always restocking. So any profit you made at all was like, oh, I got to order some more stuff. And then there was also the issue of just dealing with overseas suppliers and all that made things a little bit it wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. And then I honestly don't remember how I kind of stumbled into doing merch, but I had been doing T-shirts for other things, just as part of my work. Someone would say, oh, we just need a T-shirt designed or something like that, and I'd be like, oh yeah, no problem. And I'd figure out what they wanted to do. And then when I think I actually found Amazon merch after I was already doing it like on Spreadshirt, and I'm still on Spreadshirt and Redbubble and TeePublic and some of the other ones. But I had been doing Spreadshirt for a while, and I hadn't really I posted some stuff and it didn't really sell, and I wasn't really doing it consistently. And then I found out about merch, and I applied for an account, and this was maybe a little over 2 years ago, and then started that process of hey, I got approved, and you get your first 10 shirts up, and then you make a sale, and it's like, oh my God, I made a sale, and then you start to see. Especially if you get something that you find a little niche that is selling consistently, you're like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. I'm actually starting to make some money off this design. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got started. In that I was I had originally done T-shirts just as an additional thing for a freelance client. They needed a brochure and they needed a website, but they're like, hey, do you know anyone that can design a T-shirt? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can design a T-shirt. It's a graphic, right?
Right.
So learning about that, and then that process kind of led me into, the whole world of merch and doing that stuff. So it's been interesting. Yeah.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
For your main job, were you a freelancer, or what was your main graphic design job?
Well, anyone who knows anything about being a graphic designer is that usually the way it works is you work for a place for a while, and then you get laid off, then you become a freelancer, and then you freelance for a while, and then you freelance at one place long enough where they're like, we should hire this person, it's cheaper, and then you work there for a while, and then you get laid off, and then it kind of the process kind of goes over and over again. So in that process, like for me, I've worked primarily in entertainment marketing, and so I've kept some freelance clients that are not entertainment marketing related, because you don't want to have a conflict of interest. So I do some things that are like package design for like supplement manufacturers or athletic equipment, stuff that's not related to entertainment at all. So and so I've got those. It would be those clients that were like, hey, we need a T-shirt too. So it's sort of like there's sort of this ebb and flow with that sort of life is, and there's certainly an argument to be made for, just freelancing all the time. But when you got a family and you want to make sure the bills are paid, and sometimes you just take the full-time job because it makes sense to do it. And I can't complain about my full-time job. It's great, and the fact that I'm working right now, I'm very, very grateful for that. So
yeah, and what a great experience for learning how to be an entrepreneur, or even just side hustles, because when you are a freelancer, that's basically the same thing. I mean, you're on your own.
Basically, right. And so it's allowed me to be able to explore a couple different like side businesses and things like that. It was something something I could do with my wife. That was kind of interesting. That was the FBA thing, and then it was like, oh, well, and you just sort of learn by,
Yeah.
being able to do it on the side gives you the luxury of being able to make mistakes at it, and they're not too costly, and it's not like your whole livelihood's gone because you didn't learn how to do pay-per-click advertising. You know what I mean? So
Right. That needs to be a little sound bite right there. That's very good advice.
Yeah.
Like, start with it being on the side, because a lot of these kind of jobs, it seems great, but then when you're actually in it, you're like, how is this so hard? Like, I'm not getting anywhere. Or like you said with FBA, where it's like you can do it, but it's like you have to immediately reinvest the profit you just made back into inventory. So it feels so slow in the beginning.
Right. And also, I mean, well, with any entrepreneur, especially people who are doing marketing things online, a big part of that is telling people that it's easy, because then they, if you're, I'm not knocking people that make their money doing that. I mean, that's a legitimate business, and there's certainly money to be made. But convincing people that anyone can do it and it's super easy to do gets you in. And then once you're in, you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is actually a ton of work, and it takes a while to kind of get going. So that's really that's really the crux of it is, yes, I want to get into this, but how long is it going to take before this starts to become profitable and something that I can actually, make a living at? So,
right. And the problem is it's different for everyone. And it
Yes,
really
for everyone.
matters for merch. It really matters how good you are at research, and how good you are at keywords, and how good you are at design. I mean, there's so many elements. And then for FBA, it really matters how much money you have to start with, because if you're trying to make a full-time income when you only have like $50 to buy inventory, it takes a long time for that $50 to keep multiplying into like a real income. If you start with $1 million, it's a lot easier to just, hit the ground running and make a lot of money. So it's just such a wide range of your background skills, and then your money, and then whether you have the capability to reinvest the profits that you make, or if you have to keep taking money out of the business. So, but anyway, it's great that you've had all these different experiences and learning all these different things. With merch, I know you've been steadily growing. Tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about how you started designing for T-shirts versus some of the other products that you were designing. Is there any tips that you have for actual T-shirt design?
Well, so one of the things I see a lot of this too is there is, hang on one second here. There is, like everyone else, I look at a lot of the stuff that is out there, and there's a lot of really good T-shirt design, and there's a lot of really bad T-shirt design.
Right.
It's just, and I think one of the things that if you're not a designer, it's really easy to say, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, how to make this stuff, and I don't even know where to start, because there's so many choices right now, and with all the different tools that are available, it makes it seem really easy. Making the end product. Getting yourself to a PNG file that you can upload to, Amazon or Redbubble or something. There's plenty of tools available that make that really simple. But that's the simplest part. The difficult part is, okay, what's my idea, and how do I make it look good, and how do I make it creatively? How is it satisfying for me to make this? And it can be really frustrating. If you don't know anything about typography, if you don't know anything about color theory, if you don't know anything about composition and all that, you think, well, I'm just going to throw some words on a T-shirt, it'll be fine. But it's when you do that, you see, oh, okay, they just threw some words on a shirt. But for me, actually designing something, there's the process of trying to solve the design problem, and then and then not only have you done good work, I mean, I've done the thing. We have some designs that I've spent a lot of time on and made something really good that I like, and those tend to sell, but they tend to not be, oh, I'm just going to do a variation on something that's already selling. That's a copycat, because those are usually the market's sort of saturated with that, and also it's not very satisfying to do as a designer, because you don't really just want to be copying things other people are doing. So you want to do something creatively that you like and that you're proud of, but also because it's unique, that tends to sell as well. At least that's been my experience. That's your question?
Great advice. Yeah. I think it must be so frustrating for designers to look at merch. It's like there's so many newbies and so many designs that don't meet designer standards.
Well, that and then like I'll see my, like if I've got some designs that have been pretty successful, and then I see people ripping off versions of them, and then I just like, oh, they shouldn't, I shouldn't have picked that font, or whatever it is that you see you see like stuff, when you get a design that sells, then what happens is, at some point, someone's noticing it and they say, hey, that design's cool, that's selling, that's unique, and then they'll copy it, and then you see a whole bunch of copycats out there, and then and then again, it's a thing of, what do I want to spend my time on? Do I want to spend my time trying to chase down copycats or that are doing a copycat of a design? And, you hope that their bad design that's a copy of your design is not selling more than yours. And you think, well, I'm just going to, I'm not going to try to chase down, because that's a full-time job, just like going through. And I don't know whether, actually, this is a good question for you, is I don't know whether you've experienced this, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll just Google search my own, like either keywords or my own design, and I'll find my designs basically listed on other, like on foreign websites and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's so frustrating because there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're scraping the designs off of Amazon, but you can see that it's distorted or something like that. But I've found my stuff on websites all over, all over the world. You're just like, oh man, I don't really want to.
It's really frustrating. I wish there was a way to prevent copying. It's a problem that hasn't been solved yet. I hope at some point there is a way to solve it. Right now, there really isn't. I don't actually know the answer of how to solve that problem.
Because the funny thing is like, it's not just Amazon. Like, for example, I have found, I'm not picking on Spreadshirt specifically, but I have found my designs that are on Spreadshirt, and then someone has also listed that they've taken my design, not even like redid it. They just like took the PNG file somehow or another, scraped it, and then relisted it, under a different username. And it's so frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
Like, okay. And then you have to, look, if you've got as many designs as most people have that are making any money, are you in the 10,000 tier? What tier are you?
10,000, yeah.
Okay, so I'm still at the 6,000 tier, just because I haven't, I'm at like 5,800 sales.
And you can still make a lot of money even if you're not, like, if you have good enough designs that are selling well enough, you could make money even at 100 tier. But it's just, the more search you have, the more likely you'll have search take off.
Right, but copywriting every design that you do it's cost prohibitive, and it's completely impractical. There's no way to do that, because, I don't know how many individual designs I have up there, but if I copyrighted every single one of them, and then, when you see this design and you say, well, this guy stole my design, and they go, well, can you give me the copyright information? You're just like, I guess, but it's just like, again, when you're dealing with these tiny margins of a couple dollars per shirt, and you're really sort of chasing these things down, it can be a little frustrating. I feel like I'm saying a lot of negative things about it, and I'm not.
That's okay.
Doing this, but
it's okay.
It can be very frustrating as a designer to see other people just stealing, just outright either making a copy of your design that's what I think would be an inferior copy, or just outright stealing it and posting it as their design. That drives me crazy. Yeah, because and
I think I think it's important to talk about, because I think it is a problem in the industry, and it's especially a problem for designers that really take a lot of time on their designs and really are proud of their designs. It hurts more than if it's someone that like myself, I mean, I think my designs are good, but they're not, I don't think they're probably as good as yours. Like I do a lot of text designs or simple designs. So it doesn't hurt as much if someone copies it, because it's just like, okay, well, that was 15 minutes of my life. Like,
right. You just still feel like, well, they didn't earn that. They just stole it,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And that,
so
that
it still hurts, but just not to the level that it hurts if you're a designer.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's a violation any way you think about it. It's just like, well, someone has taken something that belongs to you and said it belongs to them. So that
I think
wrong.
it's right now, it's just if you happen to think of a solution to the problem, let me know. Maybe we can help these companies figure out better ways. For me, I can't quite think of what the solution would be. That the problem with technology is it can be used for good or for bad. So
Yes.
we are all benefiting from technology, being able to put our designs up on the internet for anyone to see so that anyone could buy it. But at the same time, anyone can see it, so anyone can copy it. So it's a double-edged sword. Most people still are able to make money even with the copycats. So it's not completely destroying the industry, but it is a severe problem. So if we could all come together, and I'm sure there's so many creative people that could think of potential solutions to this, but we'll see what happens.
You know, the funny thing about that too is, like, I've seen people that they basically are just taking a, you know, like if you go to like Shutterstock or any sort of like stock image thing, they have a watermark on things. And I've seen it where the people just copy it with the watermark on it and post it with the watermark. And you're just like, and because there's, you know, no one is individually checking every design that gets posted, it just goes up there and it probably doesn't sell. I would hope not. But, you know, when you see these designs up there that have the watermark of the place, so it's obviously it's a stolen design. They didn't even bother to like download it and, you know, buy the design, and they just stole it right off the preview and just posted it. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I don't know.
All we can do is just keep moving forward. But again, if you think of solutions, and it never hurts to just mention them. Who knows if we can convince some of these companies to take better actions against copycats.
Yeah, there's got to be a way of keeping people from sort of just scraping designs off of the back end of Amazon or Public or any of those other ones.
There's people from most of the different platforms in the Facebook group. So you will be heard if you think of ideas that could solve this problem.
Absolutely.
But anyway, we're sidetracked. So back to designing. I guess what is your process? Like, do you think of it, how do you think of the idea, and then how do you take that idea and turn it into a design? What are some of the steps you take in your design process?
Okay, so it sort of depends on, you know, design inspiration, especially, you know, I mean, with T-shirts and things like that. You know, there's a kind of a famous quote. If you see behind me, let's see back over. I'm up reversed here. I'm behind my shoulder here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bust. I got this completely wrong. There's a bust.
Of no, it's mirrored.
I don't know if you can see it. It's a bust of Teddy Roosevelt back there. And I know a lot. I read a lot of presidential history, and he talked a lot about presidential campaigns. And he said, it's presidential campaigns. It has to be a poster and not an oil painting. And so in a lot of ways, you have to think of, for T-shirts, I think of that the same way. You know, you can't think of something that is overly complicated. It has to read very quickly. It has to be something that visually makes an impact immediately. So, you know, I see some shirts that have a lot of text on it that is basically like you have to read, this plumber is an awesome husband of blah, blah. You know, you've seen those, right? They got like a million things on there. And besides being whatever that is about the design and the message, I mean, that may be a very specific niche and that may sell a few shirts. But to me, that doesn't read immediately as anything that I would want to wear. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I would do is, honestly, I think, well, would I wear it? You know, I mean, is this something that, I mean, whether it's a design that I would technically wear, you think, well, is this going to look good enough to put on, and would someone like to wear that? Or can you picture someone, seeing someone at the park wearing this or something like that? Mm-hmm. So I kind of start with there. If I get an idea about something, it's usually something that I'm interested in, hopefully. And maybe you think, well, there's an interesting angle about that. And, right now, I'm sure there's a lot of people making politics t-shirts and stuff like that, which makes sense. So if you can find an interesting way to do, whoever your candidate is, an interesting t-shirt about, about that candidate and be able to turn around and sell it. And, I'm going to use an example since we're talking about politics. What's the things that makes you think of a particular candidate? Well, with Donald Trump, you think of he's orange, but he's also, his hair is very notice. He has a very specific, and a lot of people do kind of cartoon versions of his hair, right? So that would be a way to kind of start with, if you wanted to do something that was a Trump t-shirt, whether it's pro-Trump or anti-Trump, you would use that sort of yellow swoopy, motif as the thing. For if you're talking about, for Bernie Sanders, it would be the glasses. I think if people have seen the t-shirts that are just like the glasses and the hair. Those are great. I don't know who did that design, but it's great because you see that and you're immediately like, that's Bernie Sanders. For Joe Biden, I think it's probably the aviator sunglasses because he was kind of like, so you have to kind of like, you have to sort of identify the recognizable characteristic for something that you want to talk about. So if you're doing something that is for like whatever your niche is, if it's if I talked about plumbers, if you're doing a niche that's a plumber, and you think, well, what are the things that makes you think of plumbers? Probably a plumber's wrench would be the first thing I think of. So then you think of, well, how can I graphically represent a plumber's wrench, and what is the appropriate typography that would go with that? I'm thinking off the top of my head, so that's maybe not a great idea, but so something like that, you'd start with, okay, I want to do something that's plumber related or something, or like I was sketching some things last night. I was thinking about, and this is not plumber related, but I was trying to think of something that we could talk about. And I was looking at some old vintage surfing posters. Now, I'm not a surfer, but like there's some really cool. Actually, it wasn't even surfing posters. It was TWA, the old airline, back in the 60s and 70s, had these amazing posters that they did. Really cool. Wow. And so one of the things that I do is I'll start by looking at stuff on Pinterest, and I'll create so if there's a niche or theme I want to go with. So surfing, for example, you could go to Pinterest if you have an account and you create a Pinterest board that's just specifically for, surfing posters or, surf movie posters or whatever that is. And then from there, you can start to see that's how you get inspiration. Designers do that all the time. I do it for not just for t-shirts. I do it for everything.
Yeah.
If I'm going, if we do a screen share and I could pull up my Pinterest things just to show you. I mean, but I do stuff for like if I'm doing package design, I search packaging. If I'm doing typography or if I'm looking for something specific, I'll do that. So I'll go from there. And a lot of times if you're looking at a specific era or a specific genre or something like that, you think, okay, well, I'm going to it's in design. I was taught that it's called a visual audit, which means I'm gathering up all these, I'm doing a visual audit, and the internet makes it super easy. It used to be you have to go to the library, but the internet makes it super easy to do a visual audit, to look for things that inspire you and kind of put them all in one spot. And I think there are other sites that do something similar, but Pinterest is great. It's really easy to use. Everyone has it. And so you put together a Pinterest board. That's kind of where I start. And then from there, I'll say, okay, well, is there something in here that I think is sort of interesting that I could maybe make a design out of? Or if I want to, surfing t-shirts. I guess I was thinking about San Diego because we were talking about, my son's going to be going to college soon and, he might go to San Diego. So I was thinking, it was just on my mind. So I was looking at that. So then I get my sketchbook out, right? I don't know if you guys can see that, and I just start sketching. You see that, like, you know, I mean, really, really rough, you know, that's
Right.
just these sort of really rough ideas of, you know, can I do something? I don't know if you guys can see that. I've got other things that I do for other clients and stuff like that. That was a pretty bad. I mean, literally, I was just kind of like sketching that quickly. Like here's another. This is a totally separate sort of a client, but you know, just like icons, ideas, things like that I'll start from. So that's kind of where I start.
So you start with the big niche, and then you do research on Pinterest, make a Pinterest board, then you start sketching in your sketchbook.
Yeah, and you, like I said, you can either be good at sketching or not good at sketching. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that if you're doing that, if you're making thumbnails, which is what they call that, tiny sketches, you're doing it quickly so that you can do iterations really quickly and you can knock things out quickly and start to go, okay, you know, this is not a good idea. This is a good idea. And like I said, you don't have to be a designer at all to do that. You just, you know, you're working with circles, squares, and triangles and letters, you know, whichever anyone can draw those things. And then from there, you think, okay, well, there might be something here. And then from there, I would start for me, because I use, you know, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop. I basically use the Adobe suite of products. They have with the Adobe suite of products, they have Adobe Type, or it used to be called Typekit. Now it's just called Adobe Fonts or Adobe Type or something. And you can go there and start browsing for fonts that might be appropriate for whatever the genre is that you're doing, you know, or whatever the thing. If I'm doing something for plumbers, like I was talking earlier, I wouldn't do a big scripty, pretty font for that. It doesn't make sense. You use what's called a sans serif font or a slab serif font, which is kind of a substantial, heavy, you know, masculine looking font to write plumber or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. So you kind of start to pull that idea together from there. And it doesn't take long to do. And once you start doing it more often, you kind of, there's a shorthand there. You think, okay, well, you know, I know that there's particular fonts that I might want to use or particular colors that I might want to use.
Perfect.
Just a side thing. One of the things that I see a lot in t-shirts and stuff and with people is they think, well, I don't know what colors to use. And it's really easy to, if you don't know color theory, which most people don't, and that's fine. But as part of the Adobe package, they have something called Adobe Color, which you can go, it's just online. And if you put in one color, I could show it to you if we go there, but it'll give you a bunch of other colors as choices that are complementary colors to that. But one thing that people tend to do, I think, that makes a shirt not look good is they use too many colors. They're using 5 or 6 colors on something, and that's just too many. And it's just things become hard to read. Usually you want to stay to no more than 3 colors. 2 is probably better. And then you think about, okay, well, if I'm doing a black t-shirt, well, then I don't want to use a dark gray color because you're not going to see it. So you'll usually pick white, and then you'll pick some other sort of bright complementary, you know, white and red on a black t-shirt is going to read really well because, you know, the printing process, you get to really see, you know, what that looks like. And that's the other thing I would just say about, you know, doing these designs is obviously if you've got 6,000 designs, you're not going to order a sample for every t-shirt. You'd go bankrupt. But if you've got a design that you think, you know, is going to look good or something is starting to sell, it might be worth ordering a copy of that to look at to say, okay, well, you know, the colors, you know, what is it about the colors on this that's working? You know,
that's a great idea. Let me pause you there for just a second and go back out to the chat. Thank you guys all. So many people coming on today. I really appreciate it. And everybody saying happy birthday. So thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Souza. Thank you, everybody. It's so nice to be able to spend time with all of you guys today on my birthday. And then
you're spending time with me on your birthday. That's
I
crazy.
know. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And so I think it'd be a great time to go ahead and share your screen so that people can kind of now that you've explained the process, they can kind of see you do it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and while you're doing that, Teresa did have a question. She said, how do I get my illustrations from a sketchbook to my computer?
Ah, great question. Okay, so what I do is, if you've got a cell phone, like I'm sure everyone does, you can download. If you just look at, if you go to the App Store or Google Play, I guess is the Amazon, the Android equivalent, just type in Adobe, and there'll be a bunch of different products that are there. Let me just take a look at the one. I'm just trying to remember the ones that. So on my screen here, as you can see, oops, I was thinking. So there are these products there, and it's like Adobe Sketch, Adobe Scan, Adobe Capture, and then there's like Spark and video and stuff like that. So I use Adobe Capture, which is basically just a thing that takes a picture of your image. It can turn it into vector art for you, so it'll turn it into line drawings, and then if you save it to your Adobe library, it'll automatically bring it into your Adobe library for you, and then you can just drag it into Illustrator or Photoshop, and then work with it from there. That's a good way. That's a good way to do it. I do that, or sometimes I just, I just take a picture with my phone, because like I may, like the sketches I was showing you with that just said, classic 1976 or whatever. I just would take a picture with my phone and then, email it to myself or text message it to myself so that it shows up on my computer, and then I will just copy it and then just paste it directly into Illustrator and go from there. That's the way I'd start with it. And like the Adobe tools for that are really nice, because like I said, they will, you can clean it, you can clean them up visually, really in a really simple way. You can also use the PDF scanning software. So basically anything that you can just take with your phone, you can just email it to yourself, either with the Adobe stuff or just using your iPhone or your Android. That's how I do it. A lot of times I'll just take a sketch that's, something from my sketchbook, and just, like I was kind of showing things from these other clients. I'll just kind of start from there, and I'll just email it to myself and then bring it into, Adobe Illustrator and basically redraw it from that. And there's some skill involved in knowing how to use the tools to draw, but that's kind of where you start.
Great tips. And I love that Adobe Capture app. I've used it before too.
Yeah,
I think that's the one that does patterns, right? Is that the one where you can take a picture of something?
And you can also, I can't remember whether it's that one or another one that will actually like pull a color palette from a photograph, which is really cool. So, if you've got like, maybe there's a, you're at a store and you see a fabric pattern or something that you think is pretty, you can just take a picture of it and it'll just pull the color palette out of that. And then you can use that color palette for some designs that you like. So
yeah,
inspiration's everywhere. You just have to grab it,
Yep. So many good tips.
So let me see if I can, we're going to try to share the screen here. I've never used this particular, the thing we're using. So so I'm going to click share screen, and you tell me if it's working. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So sharing is easy as the two monitors. Okay. So bear with me if this isn't working.
Yeah, take your time, no problem. And James, thank you for saying happy birthday. I see your comment.
Okay. So you're probably seeing a copy of yourself.
Let me share.
Great. All right, great. So
I'm just going to give you the whole screen so people can see better. So we're going to disappear for a minute.
Cool. Okay. So you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing I was talking about, let me just go here to, sorry, let me just go to Pinterest, okay? Just as an example here. So this is just one of my boards that I just have for, I was doing something for a Japanese design, and I needed something that was inspirational for that. Let me, sorry, I got a full screen here. Oh yeah, so there's a little bit of a lag here, but just let me see if I can just kind of jump over and can you guys see that okay? Is it taking up too much space? I'm not really sure because I'm just kind of going.
We can
Okay,
see
great.
Pinterest.
Okay, great. So let me go back to, yeah, there's a little bit of a lag here, so bear with me. It's just taking a while. So here's just a thing of all my different boards, right? Of just, so like I was saying, it's not merch related, but supplements, right? So I was doing some design for some supplements. So I have a board where I just grab some stuff that I like, just to think, okay, well, you know, this is just like I said, it's called a design audit or a visual audit. You look at stuff that you like and you try to find what's common in these things. Oh, you know, what are they using here that tends to be a common theme with supplement design, or there's political inspiration, or I just did some packaging for you know, a basketball packaging, so stuff for that. So here's the thing I was talking about that I was doing last night. I was just looking at classic beach posters, right? There's some really cool things here. Now you don't want to like steal these directly, but like this is a great, I don't know when this is from, but this is a great like 1960s era beach poster design, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or just a California design. That's a really nice one too. Some things from Hawaii, some things for surfers. So you get the idea what I'm talking about. You know, you start to put together a little a visual library of things that can inspire you, and then from there you can start to build stuff out. I'll just give you an example. Just looking at this, okay, what I'm seeing here, just from a design standpoint, is you see like an arc here. Like here's an arc for a wave here. Here's an arc here on this marlin. You see that? There's another arc.
Yeah.
Here's another wave arc, right? So you're starting to see there's these on the guitar. There's like this nice arcing visual thing. Same thing with the palm tree. So you start to see, even look down here in the pictured rock one, you start to see that little sweep. So there's like, oh, okay, so there's a theme there. Okay, I'm starting to see something that's a theme that you can visually think, all right, well, there's something I can go with from here. Like this one here, like I love these colors. This thing here, I'm not even sure where that's from. It's just awesome. I just love the blue and the yellow and the red. You could just go, oh man, I love those colors. I want to build something just using those colors. Just as an example, that's a really vintage look to it, right? Yeah. Or, you know, or this one here. You know, I think everyone has probably seen those shirts that people have done a million of them, where it's just that like same color palette over and over again that everyone uses. Yeah. That's like the you know, the aqua and the brown and all that. And I actually grabbed one of those color palettes, and I'll show you like how I got there. But basically from this, here's just sort of like the visual audit, and then I got the sketches that I'll do. And then from there, you start kind of seeing the final.
I like that word, visual audit. I haven't heard that before.
Audit, yeah. So this is, if you guys can see, this is my Illustrator document that I start with. And basically what this is this is 9. I'm going to turn this off. So each one of these squares is called an artboard. Okay. And each one of these artboards is 4,500 by 5,400. Okay, so which is your standard Amazon size, right? So I've made this document, and I use this document as my starting document every time, because it's just some shorthand. It's like, oh, I don't have to remake this every time. It's already set up. And then I'll have a background layer here, and then I have this template that I made a long time ago that I just kind of use, and it's basically, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's basically this grid of the t-shirt that helps me know everything I need to know about the design. Like this blue square here, this is what I call kind of like the best area for it. I think I was showing Helen, I was showing you earlier, and when I stopped sharing my screen, I'll show you. I had this printed out on a T-shirt so that I could see, like I have a physical T-shirt to say.
We
okay,
can show it if you want.
Yeah, I'll show. I don't know.
Show you. Here, let me get your. How do I get you? 1 second.
I can show it at the end just to show you the actual, because I would just have it printed on a T-shirt, right?
Okay.
So, so from here, I would, I start messing around with typography and things like that, finding something that I sort of like, visually. I've got this kind of like 70s-y sort of scripty fonts. These are two different typefaces that I kind of start here, and I start playing around with positioning and things like that. And I just I'm going to walk through it as thing. So then I start to play around with it as a, I start to stretch some things or start to make it look pleasing on a T-shirt, trying to make these spaces work together. Here's that arc that I was talking about, you kind of start to see these arcs start to happen. And that's visually sort of pleasing. And you're like, oh, okay, that's nice looking. I like that. You get this nice thing where this arc is kind of going into this negative space. So you start to visually put those things together. And then on the next frame, I start to play with some color, right? So there's a color. And then because this is Adobe Illustrator, I can pull up, this is a palette, and that palette everyone uses, here it is. It's just like, I just went into Adobe Color and looked up. I'm going to jump back to Chrome for a second, and I'm going to go color.adobe.com, right? So this is like part of using that Adobe Color palette. If I'm looking for coloring inspiration, I can just say, like, here's all these really nice blue color palettes. These are sort of the default, but I could say like 1970s and do a search. And this comes up here. All right. So now you got all these color palettes to choose from, right? And so you can say, oh, great, So you don't really have to like start from scratch. They're basically giving you these color palettes that you can choose from, right? And I think I pulled, like, there's that palette right there. So I just copied it and brought it into Illustrator as a place to start from, right? So you see how that saves some time. And these color choices, these are basically either pulled from this photograph or designers are putting it together. And then from there, I'll start playing around with colors. So from this one, I got that orange color here. That's that palette that I found. Let me know if I'm going too fast or not making any sense.
Great. I think a lot of these steps are things that most of us skip. So it's really good to really take the time to understand color palettes and I like the idea of starting. So you these are all, each of those boxes is a separate T-shirt, right? So it's a
separate T-shirt. Yeah. So I mean, I'm basically doing this to kind of show you like how I would do it in steps, but normally I would use this grid of 9 shirts to do, if I was doing, I don't know, just take this idea for example. It's probably not appropriate, but if it was like vintage 1971, and then I could do 1972 and 1973 and 1974. And so you do 9 iterations of that same idea, and then, I'll put them all, and then you've got 9 shirts as opposed to 1 shirt. You know what I mean? And it's just a way to iterate the design more quickly. And then you can do, I mean, it's just like you're expanding out a niche, or, whatever you're working on.
I love that.
I jumped here. This was something I can't remember where I got, but this was a Pinterest thing that I found that I liked. And there's that palette that we've all seen, right? It's almost this exact same palette. I don't know if this is where this palette originally came from, but you've seen that palette over and over again, right? So then from this orange one, then I basically said, okay, well, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to turn off my grid so I can say, okay, so that's kind of starting to look like something I sort of like. And then the next step was, do I want to add some more colors and some more iterations of it? So then that would be like this one here, right? So this is just, adding. So it's that same palette, right? You see the colors there: blue, cream, orange, burnt this would be like I think they call that harvest gold, and that would be like orange and brown. So you kind of see how that gets goes. And like at that point, you're like, well, okay, that's sort of, I'm not ripping this design off. It's sort of similar in the colors, but it's not like I'm stealing something.
Right.
And this is just an inspiration for this, the colors and everything. And then from here, this might be a good birthday shirt for someone who was born in 1977 or whatever, right? So that's kind of how I got there. And I'd get there from starting with, a couple fonts that I like,
Mm-hmm.
and then playing with the positioning, and then starting to play with colors, and then, building it out in a different way, and just trying to find a solution that you think, okay, well, that's kind of cool. And then here I can jump back to my my Pinterest board and think, well, does this idea sort of work in this family of design? Sort of, kind of, that type is kind of feeling like this thing here, and I'm kind of pulling some of these colors. So that's the basic idea behind it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, so I build everything, for me personally, I build everything in Illustrator. That's kind of where I start, even if I'm sketching. I might sketch something in Photoshop, bring it into Illustrator to clean it up, and then I'll bring it back to Photoshop to do more stuff with it. Like, and we were going to talk a little bit about this stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of jumping around here. But here's the design, and I just brought this into Photoshop now. This is a PNG file that I can sort of do whatever I want with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from here, I can process it in a way to, if I want to add some drop shadows or do some other stuff, or distress it, or do something to make it look vintage or something like that. That's kind of how I would get there, because to me, if I want this shirt to look like an old shirt, then you've got to go through the process of, distressing it, fading it, making it look old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is some great tips. I love the progression of how you get to there, like each step.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
you pull it into
that's basically, and then so I pull it into Photoshop, and then what I would do is, if, like, for me personally, like I've done a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people have a thing where that doing the vintage, the fade is really popular. And for me, when I'm posting a design like this design here, if I do this one, I will post it clean like this, and then I will post a faded version of it. And almost always, and just about any design I do, especially if a design that kind of has a retro feel to it, it always sells better with the faded version, always. So here, I'll just show you. Here's the faded version of that same design. Like, I just dropped this in just to show you, and it's just like I've got this Photoshop thing that I've been working on that automatically does these fades for me. So I can just process. I could choose 100 files and just say I want them all faded in a medium fade, and they'll just do them all for me, and I don't have to do them individually.
So that's where Photoshop actions come in, right? What is the difference between an action and a script, and wasn't there something else?
Yeah, so there's if you want, I can we can go back to face-to-face, or we can keep this up if you want, because it may make more sense. Let me show you, actually, because the difference between actions and scripts and stuff like that at Photoshop. So actions are, let me see if I can pull up my actions palette. I've got this Dropbox thing is stuck. Okay, my actions palette. Actions are basically, it's just driving me crazy here. If anyone's kind of familiar with like macros, what used to be called macros, it's basically a series of repeatable commands that are that will do a simple task for you over and over again. So, for example, center horizontally. Like, if, you know, I always have to center something horizontally for something, or center something horizontally and vertically. So if let me just pick this one as an example here. If I just hit that, actually, I think I've got the background selected, so that's going to be a problem. So this, if you can see, I've chosen here, Photoshop works in layers. So this is my top layer, is the one that says Vintage 77. If I say center horizontally and visually, and I just click that, it's going to center it for me. So I don't have to, I don't have to think about that. I don't have to draw grid lines and everything. I built the action to work once, and it'll always do what I want it to do. It always works the same way. So actions are kind of like a simple, repeatable set of commands that can do, like make a thumbnail, or make something white, or, you know, draw a grid. You know, there's a bunch of things like that. You can see down here, I have these actions that I built that basically you can sort of see will turn a design into a pop socket size, right? That I use, and this one in particular will make it red, because that's just the way I built that. So that's really easy, because, you know, going and having to do that every time, it's basically a repeatable action. If you've got an image that's, you know, 4,500 by 5,400, and you need to make it into a pop socket that's 485 by 485 every time, you know, doing that manually is kind of a pain. And I know that there's been some online processes that'll do that for you, but since I work in Photoshop, I like to do it just inside the program. I have a little bit more control over it, and I know what the results are going to be. Yeah. So something like this, this is an action, and that's a way. And so this will always turn this, or here's another one here, is like a hoodie one. So this will always turn this file into a hoodie size. If I just hit, right? So it's just resized it to a hoodie size, right? So that's an action, right? Just save me some time of having to go through the steps. So doing it, so the next step off of an action is kind of like, I don't want to say they're dumb, but they're dumb in that they don't, there's no real logic in them. They're basically just a series of commands that it's going to do. So if you build it into a script, which is sort of like the next level up from actions, you can put a little bit more logic in there, where it can ask you questions about, you know, what you want to process, and, you know, it'll give you a choice, you know, like the same thing. It can say, do you want to make that, you know, choose a color, as opposed to just making a red one or an orange one or a black one here. You can sort of choose a color, or you can put in, like, they're like, in computer programming, it's like if then commands. So you can put a little bit more logic into it. Right. So that's kind of how I started this, where I was building action, where I started an action, and I'm like, well, I want to have a little bit more logic so that I don't have to have these individual actions. So then from there in Photoshop, you can go in and you can find a script. I'd have to browse through those.
Is a script kind of like if you wanted to combine all those separate actions you said, like let's say you always want to make a pop socket and a hoodie and a vintage version. Can you do a script to do all three of those?
Yeah, actually, so you can build a script into that, and then from a script, you can make this kind of like goes into the thing I was talking about, is you can make it into a script can also become an extension, which is basically a script with an interface and things like that. So that's kind of what this thing is in the corner, this instant vintage thing. This is this plugin that I've been working on, and is it okay if I talk about this right now? Just to
yes, you can. And Jacob actually was just asking you about that. He says, do you make your own, and do you sell them?
I've just, like, this is actually the first one that I've made, and I am going to be releasing it sometime soon. If you guys are interested in stuff, I'm sure Helen will you'll have an announcement about it. I'll let the people in the group know. And I'm still kind of working this one out a little bit, but basically what it will, let me just open it up. So it's this thing called Instant Vintage, which I've kind of built. And if you click on it, it opens up this little interface here. And basically it has a thing where you can take any design and make it into t-shirts, hoodies, pop sockets, and KDP. And you can choose, in this case, distress for any of these things. So I've got 3 different levels of distress, so light, medium, and heavy. And it'll basically take any file. It doesn't even have to be it could be like 6,000 pixels by 6,000 pixels or something. And it'll turn it into a t-shirt, a hoodie, a pop socket. And you can either choose with your pop socket to have it add a background or not have a background. And then with the KDP thing, it'll take your file and you specify, which KDP size you want to use, the paper color, and the page count, and then choose whether you have the background is on or off. If you choose background, which means kind of like flatten it into the final file, it'll create a PDF for you. If you choose not to do the background file, then it'll just give you a PNG file, because it's going to assume that you're going to keep editing it, right? Yeah. So what you get when you process those is, like I did these a little bit earlier because I knew we were going to talk about this. I just selected that action and hit go, and it just built all these files for me. So it built the hoodie size for me. It built the pop socket size here. This is a 485 by 485 pop socket thing. I specified the color on it. This is I had resized that t-shirt one, but there's another version of it with the t-shirt, same thing. And then there's also the KDP size. So what that'll do, and I just kind of picked this background color randomly, but it'll scale it and it'll position it, and it puts it basically in the center, or roughly in the center on the right side, which is the cover, and then it leaves the background color. It puts the background in, it flattens it, it does all that stuff. So
that's really neat.
Yeah, it's what it does. And if you want, I actually have a demo video of it that I can I haven't posted it yet, but I'll put it up on YouTube today, and then I'll send you a link, and then you can share it with the group if they want to see how it works. It's not quite done yet, but it'll be done soon. And if you guys are interested, I'll be happy to share it with you. So, but that's kind of basically the process. I think I just went back to. Yep,
we're back.
Okay.
Yeah, show them that shirt you have.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah,
because I think that's cool.
Right. So I've got it right here. So here's like that grid that you were looking at earlier. As you can see that. Here it is. Just it's weird. I'm working backwards on the camera, but here it is on the shirt, right? So yeah. I kind of start from that, so looking at this shirt, you're like, okay, well, that's what the whole merch shirt looks like. I'm going to back up a little bit more. So it covers pretty much the whole shirt. Now, I know a lot of people, we were kind of talking about this earlier, a lot of people like to have their graphics be the entire like 4,500 by 5,400 grid, but that's the whole shirt. And most people might not want, that'll look really good on the mock-up on Amazon, but it might not be what they expect when they actually get the shirt, because when you get it in your graphic, whatever it is, world's best plumber, and it's the entire shirt. I think that it sells more shirts and it also returns more shirts, because I think when people get it and it's that big, they tend to send it back because it's not what they were expecting. So I built the grid just to kind of think for myself, to visualize, how do I, what's the best position for this? How is this going to look good on my shirt? And it's got it's got gradients and color values and stuff. It just kind of helps me look at it so that I know what I'm working with.
Yeah, I love how you have it on the actual shirt, and then you also have the template right in Illustrator, so you can be seeing it as you're designing.
Yeah, because basically, I built it in Illustrator, and then I was like, well, I may as well get a shirt made so I know what this looks like on a shirt. That was the whole idea behind it, is this way you kind of have a sense of what it looks like on the shirt. And it's a good idea. I actually have this in this is what, a men's black or whatever, medium or large, but it's probably a good idea to have it. I probably should have that like in the women's size and in the, and different sizes and stuff. But I just kind of have it just to kind of give an idea of where it sits on the shirt, so I know where the graphics are.
Yeah.
And then like I just show, like, I don't know if you guys can see this, but see this like kind of skull shirt thing here?
Oh, that looks cool.
Yeah. So if you look kind of closely at it, well, it's kind of, you can sort of see that distressing and the checking on it.
Mm-hmm.
That looks pretty real. It looks like an old, you want it to look like an old silkscreen thing. So that fading and all this checking and stuff that is done in Photoshop looks like it's an old, it's an old silkscreen shirt that started to crackle and stuff like that. That was kind of the idea behind it. The way I got that is I went to like Goodwill and I found some old, silkscreen shirts that were faded and stuff. And I bought them and I scanned them and, did a bunch of stuff so that I was basically just getting the black and white values of the crackle. And then I made that into the pattern. So.
Wow. That's interesting. I didn't know that's how you made the pattern. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like another way of, it's like there's a few steps to it. So it's like I scan the shirt and then I, process it and then I make that into a Photoshop brush. And then I use the Photoshop brush to kind of paint the pattern where I want it. And then I save that image as its own pattern. And then I apply that pattern to the thing and it makes it fade. Because there's a few steps involved, but that's kind of how to get it. But now that I've done that all in advance, now it's complete. And so I just have to run the script and it always will process it based on either, and I've done 3 different versions of it, light, medium, and heavy. And then those, kind of work out as the different fade levels, but it's consistent. So I don't have to do it every time. It's like building the script, building the actions, starting with an action and then building that into a script, ultimately saves time. There's a lot of upfront work, but then for me, it's really simple. Like but up until when I built this plugin, I had these actions built where I would just take my t-shirts and then just drag them into the actions and they would basically distress everything for me and save it. And then, then they were ready to upload as faded ones. So I didn't have to go through and individually do them because that was going to take forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, do you know it's already been more than an hour before?
See, and I thought I would be able to talk for an hour. I was like,
before we started, Jim's like, he was like, there's no way we're going to go an hour. So I just want to warn you. And I'm like, there's no way we're going to be able to stay under an hour. I just want to warn you.
Yeah. I was like,
I stopped myself from asking you so many questions because I knew we were going to run out of time.
Well, if you want to go, I don't want to. I mean, obviously, people are very nice to be watching and everything. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them for you, or you can just like send me a thing in the Facebook thing. I'm happy to answer those questions too.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on. This was so helpful. You really broke it down for everyone. I think everyone is very appreciative of that. And guys, if you have any last questions to ask Jim real quick, we could probably fit in 1 or 2. And then also, I just wanted to throw it back to you and just say, is there anything that you wanted to be able to tell everyone that we haven't been able to cover yet?
Oh boy. Well, I think a lot of it again is for me, these are like my sage words of wisdom. For me, the stuff that I find most gratifying and the stuff honestly that is most successful, that as far as sales go, is usually when you're doing something that is a completely unique design that's not a copy of someone else's design. Especially like if you stumble on some niche that is, something you can, okay, so there's something I can expand on. So if you stumble on a niche that you're finding, hey, I made 10 sales on this niche, whatever it is, piano lovers, or I don't know, whatever it is, hey, or love to play the Hammond organ, I don't know, whatever it is. And you find something like that, do whatever you can to sort of dominate that niche by doing as many sort of like similar similar designs that that are appealing to the same group. You don't want to do the same design over and over again, but you would want to find, like the beach party ones. Like if you're into like classic surfing or something like that, as an example, do 20 completely unique designs that are all branded the same, that all show up in the same store, and then you can sort of like dominate whatever that niche is. That seems to be the way to go. And because if you can get yourself, I don't know, five to 10 niches like that are as opposed to just kind of like spraying and praying, just I'm going to do a million different designs and hopefully something works. Once you find ones that start to work, start to drill down on those things and flesh those out, so that, because people, for one thing, people are like, well, I bought that shirt, I like that shirt, so they've also got this design, which is cool, I like that too. It's kind of like micro targeting that specific audience. And then also you start to get the hang of, you start to get the hang of the color palette, you get the hang of the look of the thing. Even if you're hiring, if you're going to, Upwork or Fiverr and getting your designs that way, I don't recommend that, but if that's the way you do it, you can at least start to find stuff that's in the same thing. And you can do that same process by building you've got your t-shirts, you've got your designs, you can make a Pinterest page for that, and then share that Pinterest page with the people that are designing for you. That's a really good way to get, if you are hiring designers, building a Pinterest page of stuff you like or your own designs, that's a really good way to get people to design stuff that works in that same niche.
Perfect.
That makes sense?
Yep. And then real quick, Carlo had this question that I forgot to ask, and you about where could he find color palettes that are good for merch?
Well, again, it's really hard to say that there's a specific color palette that's good for merch, because merch is such a wide thing. Like, for example, like maybe your thing is the Navy. All right. So if you're doing t-shirts for the Navy, I'm pretty sure that there's a licensing thing there, but I'm just picking that one out of the top of my head. If you're doing something for the Navy, then you're not going to use orange and pink, because those are not Navy colors. But orange and pink may be great for yoga shirts, off the top of my head. So it's really more to do with the particular niche that you're in, and then finding colors that work in that niche. Do you know what I mean?
I think this is a similar question from Dave about how do you create a color palette from an image. Was that the Adobe Capture thing, or is there another way? Yeah, so you can, I'm pretty sure you may even do this if you don't have an Adobe account, but if you go to that was color.adobe.com, you can upload an image there and it'll just make a palette for you of it. I know we're kind of running late on time, but can I share a screen again? One really quick, I'll just show something on that. Absolutely. Thank you for going up.
Yeah, sure. Let's just, since we're talking about Adobe, are you guys seeing my screen now? Or okay, good.
Yes.
Oh wow, look at that. Cool. All right. So here's the Adobe Color, right? And if you're under Explore, right? Now I don't know, like I'm not signed in right now, but you should be able to just upload an image and it'll create the palette on that image, right? Let me see. You may need to have an account and sign in for that, but just you can also look under and it's like I'm not an Adobe affiliate. This is just the tools I use. So you can look under trends here and it'll give you some ideas for palettes based on popular colors. But what I do is if you're in if you go to the create screen, okay, here you go. So extract theme. So extract theme here from under create, extract theme, and then you can select a file from your computer. I'm totally doing this off the top of my head, so excuse me if this is wrong. Let me see if I've got anything in downloads here. probably nothing that I can share. But basically, I really want to find something here, but I don't. Let me
That's
just
okay.
bear with me 1 second. I know because I want to do something. Let's just say guitars. Okay, I'm not on guitars. Okay, that's a pretty picture. Let's
Yeah.
I'm going to save this image as ours. And then I'm going to go back to Adobe Color Theme, and I'm going to select this file and open. And there you go. It picked a palette for you, right?
Perfect.
So just like that. And then you can adjust that just by moving that, and you're basically pulling the colors right out of the palette. The other thing and then it also gives you these options just by, bright or muted or deep. And then for me, like I'll go to the color wheel, and I'll just pick let's just pick here's a popular here's a popular color, red, right? So red, and then you can just say complementary, and it'll give you colors off of that work with red. Christmas colors. This is why Christmas colors work, by the way. Green and red, they're complementary. Split complementary. So it gives you an idea. So these are basically, you've got this nice palette here that you can work with, and you can save this palette or download it and then just use those. And these colors work well together because they're all done, via, the algorithm that's calculating this stuff. So here's a really nice palette. Now I wouldn't necessarily use all these colors in a t-shirt specifically, but I would pick like red, cyan, and magenta. These are pretty nice together. Those would look good for like a vacation-y sort of shirt. So that's kind of a way to do that, right?
Thank you so much. It's so helpful.
Yeah. Good.
And
I'm happy to help.
Last question, somebody said, do you use CMYK?
So that's really, okay, so that's a great question. Let me get back to StreamYard so I can see you. Okay, so when things are printed, they print in CMYK. It's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, right? Those are the ink colors. But if you're using, and I think that actually Amazon and some of the other ones prefer that you do an RGB image. So what's going to happen is RGB is you're going to get more vibrant colors in RGB in the way it looks on the screen. It's still going to print CMYK, but I suggest that I'm pretty sure Merch allows this, or this is what Merch. I think they prefer RGB images that are then converted to CMYK. The reason why I recommend using I hope I'm right here because I could be wrong. But the reason why I recommend using RGB is because they look brighter on the screen and they look really good in the mock-ups because you're using, you're getting the difference between reflective color and refractive color, which is another thing. But using RGB images, they're always going to be converted to CMYK at the printer. So if you're really interested in things looking really accurate, you should probably start with the CMYK. But I think, for example, that Amazon wants you to upload RGB images and then they convert them. I'm not really sure why. So just really quickly, the way to think about that is if something is physically printed, if it's printed on a piece of paper, if it's printed on a t-shirt, or if it's printed, it is either using, there's a couple different printing processes, but that is going to be CMYK, okay? Because it's printed using cyan, yellow, magenta, and black ink. If you're looking at something on a screen, you're looking at it in RGB color. So it's because monitors work in red, green, and blue. That's just the way monitors work. So if I'm looking at an image, even if it says it's a CMYK image, it's basically muted it down to simulate what it will look like printed, because you're still looking at an RGB image. It's simulating CMYK, which is a printed color, which is going to be more muted. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
That's a complicated topic, but yeah. Usually, if you want stuff to really pop on the screen and pop like on the you know, on the Amazon MockUps and stuff like that, probably use RGB because it'll pop more. It'll still look muted when they get the shirt, but that's, you know, that's just a function of nothing prints in RGB. Everything prints in CMYK. There are no RGB printers. Everything is a CMYK printer.
Well, thank you so much, Jen. This was amazing, and it was so helpful for the audience and for everyone. And thank you, everybody who watched today. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. Matt and several other people said they're going to watch the replay. And Matt was wondering where it is. You can find it right on YouTube or on our Facebook group. So Merch Money for both of those. You'll see it.
And Helen, just real quick, if people have like more specific questions and stuff, and you want to, you know, post them in the group on Facebook or just send me a message, I'll try to answer as many as I can as I have time. And I'll also, you know, if you want to see more of a demo of that that instant vintage processing thing, that extension, I've got a demo of it that I haven't posted yet, but I'll post it and I'll send you the link on that.
Perfect. And once Jim sends me the link, I will put it in the description of the YouTube video, so you guys will be able to find it there. And then I'll also put it in the Facebook group. So, well, thank you so much. And we look forward to watching the demo and just continuing to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Helen.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.